Hey guys, ModzLink here, bringing you another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to extract a PS3 Console ID from a dead PS3 motherboard. Now, to do this, you're going to need a PS3 that has a NOR chip. If you don't know if the motherboard has that kind of chip, basically any CE, CH, H or higher PS3 has a NOR chip. In order to do this, you're going to need the following items. First off, you're going to need a dead PS3 motherboard, such as this one here. And this is the chip that you want. So this is the NOR chip here. And that's the chip that you want. If the motherboard doesn't have that chip, like this motherboard here, then someone already beat you to it and they extracted the CID from that motherboard. So make sure you have a board that actually has this chip, and then you will need these other items. The most important thing you're going to need is your E3 flasher. If you need one of these, there will be links in the description for all of these items, so you can go and purchase everything you need. So you'll need your E3 flasher. You'll also need your E3 NOR clip. You will also need this little device. This is a power supply which goes along with this. This is a 12 volt power supply. It connects in here, and then this changes the 12 volts into either 3.3 volts, which is what we need, or 5 volts. So make sure you have one of these. Again, there will be a link in the description to where you can go and purchase one of these. You will also need a suction pen if you don't want to get burned. This isn't a complete requirement. You can always use a knife or something like that to move the chip once the solder is melted, but I do suggest using one of these. You will also need flux. This will make things a lot easier, so you can actually remove the chip without damaging it. I highly suggest you use flux. You will also need some leaded solder as well as wire. Since you need solder, you're also going to need a soldering iron here. To remove the chip, you're going to need a hot air rework station or a heat gun. Either one works. You're not going to damage the chip with a heat gun. And you're also going to need a quick grip or something to put pressure on the chip so you can actually get a good dump. So let me set all this stuff aside, and then I'll show you exactly what you need to do. Alright, so first off, you're going to need your motherboard, and this here is a 3000 series, CCH3000. I don't know if you can tell from up there. Let me zoom in. So once again, this is the only chip that you need here. And as you can tell here, there's components missing. There's basically, this motherboard is dead. So in order to remove this chip here, you're going to need your hot air rework station or your heat gun. You're going to need some flux, and you're also going to need some leaded solder. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me turn on my hot air rework station. I almost forgot. You also need the suction pen if you have one. Alright, so first off, you'll want to get your flux here. And put some of this right here on the legs of the chip. My hot air rework station is running at 420 degrees. It really doesn't need to be that hot, but it'll speed up the process. So once you have the flux there, get your hot air rework station and just heat it up. This is gonna get very hot, so make sure not to touch it. Once you get it hot enough, the flux should melt. And while that's melting, get your solder ready. And just put some solder on the legs of the chip. It'll come out in blobs like this, and once it heats up enough, it should latch on to the chip's legs. You want to get a good amount of solder there, because this will make it so it's a lot easier to remove the actual chip without damaging it. Now there, as you can tell, this ball of solder is floating just fine right there. Now once you get this hot enough, you should be able to just gently pry it up with your suction pen. You might have to try a couple of times. Again, be very careful with this, because you can get seriously hurt if you don't do this properly. So make sure you've got plenty of solder there. Make sure it's liquefied. Once you can tell that it's liquefied, you should be able to go ahead and lift it up. So there's the chip. Now you can go ahead and turn off your heat gun or hot air rework station. And set the motherboard aside. The only thing we need now is that chip. Now the next thing we need to do is clean up this chip. You probably don't want to touch it with your fingers because it's very hot, but if I can show you here, as you can tell, there's a bunch of solder on the chip's legs. So we need to get all that solder removed from the legs there. We need to make sure all the legs are not touching each other. Alright, so the next thing you need to do is get your soldering iron here and make sure the tip is clean, and you should be able to grab the chip like so and just clean up the excess solder here. If you need to, use flux, as it will make things a lot easier. Now what you're trying to do here is remove any solder that's bridging the legs. You want to be able to see each individual leg. So there we go. That side is cleaned up. Let's see if I can show you. So there, if you can tell, all the legs are clean there. There's no excess solder. There's no legs that are bridged or anything like that. Make sure to clean up both sides. So there's the chip. All the legs are clean. There's no excess solder. Now we just need to make sure we clean up this excess flux that we got all over it. You can do that with rubbing alcohol or a paper towel. Make sure to brush this way so you don't get the paper towel tangled on the legs. If you damage any of the legs on the chip, you may not be able to extract the CID from it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just make sure it's clean. Now we can go ahead and grab our E3 flasher, and I'll show you what to do next. Alright, so grab your E3 flasher here and turn it around, and you're going to need to cut 2 wires that you're going to solder to your E3 flasher. Let me zoom in here so I can show you where to solder the wires. You'll need these 2 wires. Let me flip it around so you can see it this way. So one wire is right here, and this one is soldered at the last leg there. It's closest to the buttons and switches. So right there, show you up and close, right there, and then the other wire is just 2 solder points down. This one out here is the negative, and this one is the positive. If you don't know how to solder properly, then you'll probably want to look up tutorials on how to do that, but it's very simple. Let me give you a quick example here. So here's the solder joint. All you really need to do is cut your wire, which should be about 7 or 8 inches, as long as your E3 flasher basically. So about that long. And then once you're ready to solder, just grab your soldering iron, put it on that point, and then touch the solder to it, and it should just melt right into it. Then once you've got the solder there, tap it again and just put the wire in there and let it go. When you solder, make sure the solder joints are shiny. If they're dull, then it means that there could be a cold solder joint and electricity may not flow through it properly. So make sure it's a nice rounded shiny joint. So once you've got that done, go ahead and flip it over, and we'll need to solder the wires to this power supply. So remember, the outside wire is the negative, the one 3 points down is the positive. So grab your positive end. So here you can't really tell because I've used it too many times, but on this side you can clearly tell the positive and the negative side. So on this side you can tell this side is negative and this side's positive. So all you need to do is solder the wires to the corresponding side. So grab the outside wire and solder it to the negative point. Once you've done that, solder the positive to the positive point. And let me turn the E3 flasher around so you can see where the points are going. So once again, the positive side is 4 points from the outside, nearest to the buttons, and the negative side, the negative lead is the outermost point that's closest to the buttons and the switches. Once you've got that set up, you can turn off your soldering iron. Now, at this point, you're going to need the power supply here. So plug that into an outlet and test it out. To make sure it actually does work, press down this switch and make sure that your E3 flasher comes on. If it does come on, then you did it all correctly. If it doesn't come on, or you see a puff of smoke, then you soldered it to the wrong side and you broke your E3 flasher. So if that does happen, I'm not liable for it. You'll need to purchase a new E3 flasher. Once you have done this, unplug it, get your E3 flasher ribbon cable, pop it in place here, and then get this here, the chip that we extracted from the motherboard earlier, and then get this. Make sure that the writing on the chip, there is some writing on the chip if you guys can see. I don't know if you can tell, but there is some writing on the chip. Additionally, you can tell by a little notch at the top corner on the chip. Make sure that top corner lines up with this. So if you have it this way, the chip should go like this. Here's the top notch. Just put that chip in there. Let me zoom in so you guys can see. So let me take this out so I can show you. Top notch will go like this. Put the top notch in there. Press it down. Now this is where your quick grip will come in handy. You can just basically squish the chip in there. So once you've got your chip in here connected to your E3 flasher here, go ahead and plug in your power supply, and on the E3 flasher you're going to need the following switches on. So everything should be down except for the third one. The third one is the only one you need up. And then once you have done that, turn your E3 flasher on. The blue lights will start flashing here. That means it detected your chip here. And as soon as it starts flashing, you can press the start button, and this will dump the contents of the chip onto the SD card here. So just be patient, this takes a few minutes, and you'll see this bar fill up with blue LEDs. If you get an error like this, that means that your chip is not set in place properly, so you'll need to readjust and try again. So I've readjusted this and put more pressure on it. We'll go ahead and try it out one more time. If you keep getting errors, you might have to get the chip and just clamp it at the end of your table. And hopefully that will fix the issue. Alright, we'll try it one more time. And there we go. Now with the added pressure from the table and the clamp, so there's the table here, the clamp here, and the chip is being sandwiched between the table and the clamp. Now as you can tell, it's dumping just fine. So wait till all the blue lights fill up, and then we'll go over to the computer and I'll show you what to do with the dump that you've gotten. Alright, so there we go. Now as you can tell, the lights are flashing back and forth again over here. That means it was successfully read. You can go ahead and turn the E3 flasher off. And do not discard your chip here just yet. You might have to do another dump if it didn't do it successfully. So take the microSD card out of the E3 flasher and then take this to your computer so we can extract the CID and psID from it. Alright, so over on your computer, go to this URL, which will be posted in the video's description, and download this file. Just download it over to your desktop. Once you have done that, you'll get this here. Go ahead and plug in your micro SD card. In your micro SD card, you'll have a bkpps3.bin and an e3flasher.log file. Copy both of those to your desktop. And then right-click on this application, go to Properties, unblock it, hit Apply, go to the Compatibility section, and make sure this is run as an administrator. Then click OK. And drag your bkpps3.bin into that application. Accept this. If you end up getting this error, then you will need to go and do the following. I'll also have a link to this in the description. And click on this here. Save it to your desktop and run it. Install this, and after you've installed this, you should be able to go to the bkpps3.bin, drag it into this, click yes, and you will get this. Now, I'm going to be blanking this out so you guys won't be able to see it, but this will display your console ID and your psID. Most console IDs will be in the following format. So uncheck this checkbox at the bottom and copy this console ID into your Word document. After you have done that, add 32 zeros to the end of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. Once you have got this, save it as console ID.txt. And there you go. You've got your console ID there. If you need your psID, it'll be right here. And that's basically it for the tutorial on how to extract a PS3 console ID. I will have a few console IDs in stock later today. So if you guys need one, please email me at sales@modzlink.com. If you guys found this video helpful or informative, please remember to like, comment, favorite, or share the video. Consider subscribing as well for future videos. And as always, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.